Hello, and welcome to my discussion video for Harlan Ellison's Soldier of Tomorrow versus James Cameron's Terminator. Anyone who knows me knows I can talk about Terminator pretty much all day. It seems to be a franchise that's just full of brain food and endless discussion topics, and I hope that I never get bored with it. With that being said, many die-hard Terminator fans are familiar with the controversy between classic sci-fi writer Harlan Ellison and the Terminator writer and director James Cameron. For those of you who don't know, in the opening credits to the first Terminator film, you will see the lines with acknowledgement to the work of Harlan Ellison. Long story short, Ellison believed that he was entitled to some recognition after he received word that the Terminator script sounded an awful lot like his own Soldier of Tomorrow screenplay for the Outer Limits episode of the same name. I've known about this for some time, but it wasn't until recently that I decided to dive in and see if Harlan Ellison was warranted in getting his name slapped on to the James Cameron masterpiece. Before we jump into the topic, I just wanted to take a moment to thank anybody who's watched some of my videos. I'm currently at 48 subscribers and I'm pushing for 50. I made this channel just as a way to discuss and explore my passion for reading. I realize my content is a bit niche, but I promised myself that this is a just for fun project to explore the topics that I'm passionate about. With that being said, I recently finished writing my own first novel. It will be close to a year before it's ready for human eyeballs, and I plan to self-publish when it's ready. But if you're interested in my future updates regarding my own book or my book discussions, please like and subscribe. So, back to the topic. Is Soldier of Tomorrow really the prototype for Terminator? We're going to compare both versions of Harlan Ellison's work, both his short story version and the Outer Limits episode as well. And we're going to compare them to James Cameron's Terminator. So first I watched the episode of The Outer Limits. I have to admit, for like the first 5 minutes, I was like, holy crap, this is nearly identical to Terminator. We start out with two soldiers locked in combat in the middle of a future war. They are transported back in time. One of the soldiers ends up in an alleyway of a big city, and the shot of him in the alleyway being pursued by the cops immediately made me think of Kyle Reese's first appearance in 1984. After that, though, the comparisons are a bit more scarce. The future soldier isn't really pursued by the guy he was fighting in the future war like I was expecting. Instead, he's captured and brought to the psychologist who tries to unravel a story of what happens in the war in the future. Admittedly, this bit did make me think of when Dr. Silberman was interviewing Kyle Reese. However, in the Outer Limits episode, the doctor tries to integrate this future soldier into regular life for the time period, and he fails to adjust. A big showdown with the cops before the other future soldier finally reappears, and they're both struck by lightning and return to their own time. Now, the short story version mostly follows the same sequence of events, except the ending. In the original short story, the future soldier doesn't return home, and he hasn't been pursued by an enemy from the future. Instead, the doctor wants to share his story in the hopes that the soldier's testimony can be used to prevent humanity's war-driven bloodlust and bring about an end to all future wars. Now here's the part that made my hair stand up just a little bit. As the future soldier shares his testimony, humanity reacts, and all signs point to humanity having a bright future after all. But the doctor realizes that the future soldier is still here and asks the critical question about fate and whether it's been written, and if so, can it really be changed? This sounded a lot like the no fate but what we make concept that drives Terminator 2. Now, there are obviously some parallels, but overall, I feel that though James Cameron may have been influenced in some roundabout way by the work of Harlan Ellison, I don't know that it would be enough to warrant a lawsuit, at least in my opinion, simply because I am of the mind that nothing is truly original, and if you look hard enough, you will find similarities and parallels between any body of work. In fact, it's one of the driving forces behind my discussion topics. I love to explore how thoughts and themes are all connected, whether intentional or not. As a musician and as an amateur writer myself, I no longer say I wrote this cool chord progression. Instead, I say I discovered this cool chord progression. The chord progression has always been there. I just found it. But what I choose to do with it, how I bend it to make it my own, are all determined by my influences. I believe if this work had any influence on James Cameron, it was likely in this regard, and mostly subconscious. Because what makes Terminator so great is it explores similar themes with its own twists and turns. Primarily, one of the most badass endoskeleton killing machines of all time. At most, I would say with acknowledgments is all Harlan deserved in this case. However, that does not mean I don't think his work is excellent. Harlan Ellison wrote something awesome, and he has an impressive body of work. If you're a Terminator fan, I recommend checking this out. You're going to enjoy its historical relevance in the Terminator timeline, and also because it stands on its own as a compelling anti-war piece of literature. Alright guys, thanks for following along. If you'd like to engage in the conversation, please feel free to comment. Like I said earlier, like, subscribe, whatever. Appreciate y'all being here.